this one? Oh, it scanned the receipt. See, the other one was a fake one. Yeah, damn. Like, damn, I surprised myself. Is this where I brought the fake one? So you owe me 107.46 here.
Cool.
That's what it's doing here. Pull up my here so you got them.
Your voice? I know there's a problem. Well, there's someone docked on Hondo's landing pad. And it's Hondo's area. Reserved for Hondo Ogata, president of Ogata Transport Solutions. And there's a huge freighter dock there. Okay, calm down. We just need to find out who it belongs to, and we ask them to move it. Oh, it's too late for that. If Hondo sees that in his spot, he's going to be furious. Well, can't we tow it or something? No way! No, this thing is huge. A Carillion freighter. But it's modified like crazy, all beat up like a hunk of junk. That's the Millennium Falcon. Do you know how hard Hondo had to work to get Chewbacca to lend it to him? So I should call off the infraction restraints?
That's the engine, kiddo.
Yes. Leave the Falcon.
You ready to take flight?
Okay.
Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and the family and I are finally back home from the 4th of July weekend that we spent at Disneyland. It was a blast, and I'll share more about that with you guys in a later video. But for today, I did want to do a quick recap of pretty much all of the games that I got during the buy two get one promotional week that GameStop just had. I think it was only for pro members. I have 8 stacks of games with 3 games in each stack. The reason why they're set up that way is because I bought these games in groups of 3s to maximize the promotion. And so what I'll do is I'll show you each stack, and as I go through each of the 3 games in each stack, I'll let you guys know which game was the free game. On top of that, I'm also going to show you a stack of games that I've picked up from a combination of mom and pop shops and eBay. If you're wondering how I got the budget to get all these games, I did sell roughly around $2,500 worth of games at the end of last week. So I built myself a pretty hefty budget, and the funny part was that I didn't realize that the buy two get one was about to kick off. I just kind of got rid of those games because it was a lot of fluff in my collection, and I needed to kind of curate and pare the number of games down a bit. So traded a bunch of games away. I had a healthy, a healthy budget to be able to add the games that I've added today, and so that's how I was able to really kind of fit these games into the collection. Lastly, I have 2 kids and I'm constantly washing my hands. So yes, my hands are gonna be ashy. Just get used to it. If you follow this channel long enough, you know that my hands are ashy. You guys tore me up in the last video. I saw so many comments about me needing lotion and all that type of stuff. And they all really had me cracking up because it's true. My hands are dry. So they're probably going to be dry again in this video. So just giving you a quick disclaimer there. And now that we got all that out of the way, let's get into these 8 stacks of games. Starting with this first stack that you're looking at right here. So I did get a copy of Mickey Mania on the Super Nintendo. On top of that, I did go ahead and get a copy of Twisted Metal as well. And by the way, we're trying to put my 2-year-old down. She's really cranky. I don't know if you've ever had like a 2-year-old, but when they come back from a road trip, sometimes they could be really cranky. So we're trying to get her to eat and put her down. So if you hear her, that's what that's about. So we've got Mickey Mania here on the Super Nintendo. Then we had Twisted Metal, the limited edition version on the PS3, and we had Ninja Gaiden. So these are the games in the first stack, and you'll see that the value of each stack slowly goes up as we go through the stacks. Now in this bundle, the cheapest game in this bundle was the Ninja Gaiden, and Ninja Gaiden was $10. So I went ahead and just kind of put it together with this stack because this was the cheapest. These were the cheapest games out of all the games that I picked up. And I honestly wanted to get Ninja Gaiden back in my collection. I'm shocked that it's still only a $5 to $10 game. It's a pretty good game, but I really want to get my hands on Ninja Gaiden Black, so hopefully we can get that back. So that's this first stack. Then we had the second stack, which I was really stoked about getting these games. The second stack, we have Captain Planet and the Planeteers, we have Tailspin, and then we have Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. Now in this stack, the free game was Tailspin. I think Tailspin was coming in at around $20 or so. I think this was like a $20 game. And the other two were like either 25, I think they were $24.99, like 23 bucks was what these other two came to. And honestly, a really good deal. These were both in very good condition. These cartridges, just a little bit of like goo gone will get this stuff off at the bottom. But honestly, very fun games. I really don't need to say much about Liberty City Stories. You guys know about that. But Captain Planet is actually a really cool side scroller. You toggle between like, you know, flying flying a ship, and then you play as Captain Planet. I think the graphics are really cool in this game, so I think it's a very fun game. And then Tailspin is kind of like a little bit of like a side-scrolling shooter, a little shoot 'em up, if you will, on the NES. I played a little bit of these games. Very cool games to add. I do collect for the NES, so these were fun to add to the collection as well. Then moving the piece right along. Moving the bundles right along. So we have Streets of Rage, which I have yet to add back to my Sega Genesis collection. And then we have Battletoads and Monster Party. Now, Monster Party is a very interesting side scroller. Again, kind of like a side-scrolling platformer in a way. A very interesting game. This is not the cleanest copy of the game, but this was the free game in this bunch because Battletoads was, I think, like 27 or so, and the same thing with Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage was about 27 or so as well. Ordinarily, I really do prefer getting my Sega Genesis games complete in box, but I made the exception due to it being the sale, and I went ahead and picked up Streets of Rage. Hopefully I can get a box and a manual. If not, if I do wind up just having to find a complete copy, then this copy will obviously go up for trade. But all in all, being able to get Battletoads, which is a really fun NES game, and get Monster Party for free, it made this stack worth it for me. All right, moving on to the next stack that we have here. We've got Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super Nintendo, another very fun side-scrolling action game. We have Mickey's Magical Quest. This was the Capcom rendition of the Mickey platformer on the Super Nintendo. Very fun game. Capcom always adds that level of difficulty to these types of games, and so this was actually a fun one to add to the collection. And then of course a complete copy of Afro Samurai on the Xbox 360. I actually do need to do a case swap on this one, but it is complete. The disc is in great condition. In this bundle, the Magical Quest was the free game, because I believe both of these were around 35 or either 30 or 35 bucks. I think Afro Samurai was 35, Super Ghouls and Ghosts was I think 30, and then Magical Quest was like 20 or 25. So Magical Quest wound up being the free game in this bundle, and I was not mad at that. All right, moving it right along here, we have Spawn on the Game Boy Color. This is a Konami version of Spawn. Again, this is a side-scrolling action game, a little bit of platforming on this one. You can use Spawn's chains, you get Spawn's gun. It's actually a really fun one that I was glad to actually find. Very cool. And then we have this loose copy of Alien Infestation. This is a really cool side-scrolling run-and-gun shooter. If you've never played Aliens Infestation on the DS, it's a very fun one. Definitely one worth checking out. The DS, much like the Sega Genesis, I like to get these games complete if I can. But again, I made the exception because of the sale, and it did fall within the range of these other two games. And then you have Metal Gear Solid, the Legacy Collection, which is like hilarious because in that big bundle of games that I sold, I actually sold a limited edition copy of Metal Gear Solid, the Legacy Collection, the one that came with the booklet and everything. Just, you know, while it did have the slipcover in the booklet, I wasn't super stoked with the condition. So getting this kind of like standard version, but in really clean condition, was good for me. And in this stack, the free game was the Alien Infestation game, because these were all roughly around the $50 range. I think this was 50. Spawn, I think, was like 50 as well. And then Infestation was also 50. So that was the free game, was really stoked to add that. Now we're getting to the final three stacks. These three stacks are the stacks that really probably pack the biggest punch. The first stack being this stack here. So in the first game in this stack is The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap. Very cool, a much cleaner version. I did have a copy of this game, but I wasn't super happy about the label that I had. And just the game itself looked like it was in rough shape. This is a much cleaner version. It is authentic, so was glad to get that. Then we have Silent Hill Downpour on the PS3. It is complete. All of the disc-based games are complete in box, with the exception of one, which you'll see in a moment. But getting Silent Hill Downpour was definitely cool to get back into the PS3 collection. And then, of course, Splatterhouse, another one that I was glad to actually get back complete in box in the PS3 collection. Not a ton of PS3 games that I'm like super ecstatic about, but these two are definitely ones that I wanted to have back in. When it came to the breakdown of this bundle, I believe Silent Hill Downpour was the free game out of the lot. Silent Hill and Splatterhouse are both in the same price range, roughly around like 55 or so. But Minish Cap was the leader here, and I think Minish Cap came in at around 65 or so. So yeah, about a $10 difference between the most expensive game and the free game. So again, felt like I got a pretty good deal with this bundle here. All right, just moving right along, we have another stack. This stack is a little bit more pricey than the last, but we do have a bunch of loose stuff. Not a huge fan of the loose stuff, but again, it was a buy two get one, so we'll get into it. So with this one, we have Silent Hill Book of Memories on the PlayStation Vita. Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis. Was not expecting to find that while I was out and about, but they had it at a GameStop. I guess a guy had come in and traded in a bunch of like gnarly retro stuff. And so they had a couple of games left over. This was one of them, Bloodlines. And then one of the stores that I went to actually had a pretty clean copy of Super Metroid. All of these were roughly around the same price range, coming in roughly at around 65 to 70 bucks. I think Super Metroid was the leader here. And so that put Book of Memories as the free game. And that's in a way why I wasn't super bummed out, because a lot of the free games actually wound up being the games that were not complete. And so it was a pretty decent stack for me. This is probably the second most expensive stack out of all the games that were picked up. And then we'll dive into the most expensive stack right here. So the most expensive stack being this stack right here. And that is this stack that we'll go through. So first off, we have a loose copy of Sunset Riders. super authentic, very clean. It is cart only, but a very clean copy of Sunset Riders on the Super Nintendo. Pick this up because this will probably wind up being a trade chip. Because I completely emptied my trade war chest, I do have to refill the trade war chest, and the buy two get one promo is a great opportunity for me to find games that I can use for trade in the future. And Sunset Riders actually wound up being the free game in this bunch, so getting a free copy of Sunset Riders was awesome. Was glad about that. Next, I've just got a bunch of receipts blocking this, so I'll go ahead and open it up. But we have the loose disc Silent Hill. So, I would have loved to be able to say that I got a complete in-box copy of Silent Hill, but I did not. This is actually the greatest hits version of Silent Hill in terms of the loose disc. Hoping that I'll find a case, eventually. But it is loose. Nevertheless, it was, when you factor in the fact that it was part of the promotion, I figured it was worth it. You can either look at Sunset Riders being free, or you can look at it as getting all of these games for about, close to 30% off. So pretty decent deal there. And then probably the biggest shocker and the best surprise of them all, and the most expensive game out of all of the pickups, was this complete in-box copy of Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness on the Nintendo GameCube. Again, I will need to do a case swap on this one, much like Afro Samurai and Ninja Gaiden, but I'm sure I'll find a clean GameCube case eventually to do the swap. But this one was complete in box. It has everything in it there. I'm not gonna go through and pull out all the manual, all the extras and inserts and stuff, but this one is complete, and the disc is actually in pretty good shape. So was not mad at that at all. All in all, when I add up just how much I saved from just all the games that were free, it was hundreds in value, easily hundreds in value. Like I said, whenever these buy two get one promos kick in, that's when I usually try to milk GameStop for all the retro that they've got. A lot of the questions that I get is, Y2K, I never see these games when I get to the store. What the heck? How is it that you're always finding this stuff? Well, there's two things. The first thing is that I probably went to about 6 different GameStops to kind of source all of these games. And if I was only able to buy one game, I kind of just sourced all my stores. And then if I needed to, I just did return rebuys to take advantage of the promo. Most stores are cool and they will let you do that. And so that's what I did here. On top of that, I did have some online orders that were delayed, and they just happened to land right when the promo started. So I was definitely able to take advantage of that as well. So really great opportunity there. Again, saved hundreds of dollars when it comes to a lot of these pickups, and just a really great way to clean house. Now let's dive into these eBay and mom and pop shop pickups so that you can kind of see what I went out and intentionally purchased, outside of just what I happen to randomly run into at a GameStop. So let's go there. And before we do, I'm gonna take a sip of this coffee because I did have a pretty long and hectic drive on the way back home. So kind of just going into here, when we look at some of the pickups, first we're going to take a look at some of the handheld trades that came in. So all right, so starting off, we have a couple of mom and pop shop pickups. First we have Pokemon Leaf Green. This was a game that I burned some trade credit on, so was really stoked to actually add this one back into the collection. And then Mega Man Extreme on the Game Boy Color. And then we had a solid eBay pickup here, Astro Boy on the Game Boy Advance as well. For those of you who don't know, this is probably one of the best beat 'em ups on the Game Boy Advance, in my opinion. Astro Boy is an amazing combination of side-scrolling shooter, side-scrolling beat 'em up. It's just a very, very well done, fun game on the Game Boy Advance. So definitely one worth looking into. Was stoked to add these back into the collection because these were 3 games that I had in my original collection. A lot of you have already seen this one, so Kenka Bancho. I showed you guys this in an earlier video. This was one that I was able to get for a really good price too. Got this for roughly around 30% off price charting. So this is actually a really good deal A very fun RPG 3D beat 'em up style game, very unique. It's funny, you initiate fights by making eye contact with people, and you have to memorize a statement and then basically restate that statement in the right order in order for you to be able to get the first attack. It's just the way the game plays is very interesting, but definitely one worth checking out. We had some DS Heat added back to the collection. So first off, Commando Steel Disaster. I've talked about this game ad nauseum on my channel. We have Bangai-O Spirits, and we have Metal Slug 7. So this copy of Metal Slug is like immaculate. This is way cleaner than my original copy of Metal Slug 7. Now granted, I did find my original copy at a Goodwill. It was complete in box. It did have the map, so that was the cool thing. But this one has the box, it has the map, it has the manual, and it has the CD, and it has the slipcover. I didn't have the slipcover on my original copy, so this is actually a very clean copy. It's almost in like new condition. I was really stoked to get that. And then again, Commando Steel Disaster. If you're a fan of, Gunstar Heroes and Metal Slug, this game is if Gunstar Heroes and Metal Slug had a baby. This is probably one of the best run and gun shoot 'em ups for Nintendo handhelds, period. I don't want to just say on the DS. I think period, Commando Steel Disaster is definitely up there. So got some really great Nintendo DS, just some classics back into the collection. Then got this copy here of Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, complete in box, really good condition. Was stoked to add this one as well. And then I'm finally able to complete my copy of McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure. So I've had this case and this box. I've had this case and manual for a really long time. I picked it up as part of like a Facebook Marketplace deal. I got the case and the manual for probably like 12 bucks or so, 13 bucks. And was just waiting on the right time to snag a cartridge. And I finally found a cartridge clean enough that I could pair with the box and the manual. And this one, it's not the cleanest, but it's the cleanest that I was able to find. It's just really hard to find clean copies of this game, of the cartridge. I don't know why. A lot of them are like really beat up. It's almost like kids were eating McDonald's while playing the game, and they just kept on rubbing on the game. Like they're all just like greasy, and I don't know, it's weird. So anyway, was glad to be able to complete this for the Sega Genesis collection. Then we had a couple of really dope PlayStation 2 games that were added in. First, we have The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. I think I showed this one on the channel already. But then we also have Neo Contra. So Neo Contra is a sick Contra game. There were two Contra games that came out on the PS2. You have Neo Contra and Shattered Soldier. Shattered Soldier, I think, is kind of regarded as the better Contra game on the PlayStation 2, just because I think it holds true to that original like side-scrolling feel, even though it's like that 2.5D style. This one has more of like a Legacy of War feels, but I'm a fan of it, and I really like the cover art. I think the cover art is just sick. And so really two great PlayStation 2 games that I had in my original PlayStation 2 collection. Like the one I had way back. If you go back at the beginning of my channel, I had these two games in, and then when I sold off a bunch of games out of my collection, like back in 2022, these two games were like some of the first to go, and I immediately regretted it. So was glad to actually get back these games in the collection. So definitely cool to have there. And then finally, we have these two here. So Haunting Ground and Samurai Western. I've already shown both of these games, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. Haunting Ground being one of the survival horror grails on the PlayStation 2. And then Samurai Western, one that I don't hear people talk about a lot, but this is a sick game. If you're a fan of a game, like there's a game that came out on the PlayStation 1, Rising Zan. If you're a fan of Rising Zan, you're going to be a super fan of Samurai Western. Just a very fun action adventure game, hack and slash. You know, you've got some projectiles there. Just a very dope game, one that I would recommend you look into. And then the last of them all, last but not least, is this copy of Hagane. Now, before you guys lose your minds, this is not a complete in-box copy of Hagane. Not obviously it's not complete in box. Rather, this is not an authentic copy of Hagane. This is actually a reproduction copy of Hagane. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, I was able to like collect all these games because I did sell about $2,500 of games out of my collection, which wound up being like over 100 games, right? It's probably about 100 or so games that I sold and got rid of. And I kind of condensed those 100 games into about 30 to 35 really quality titles. And I had an option, right? My option was I could take the money that I got from selling those games and get an authentic copy of Hagane, or I could take that money and get a bunch of really great games that don't cost $2,000. And so my choice was to get a bunch of really good games and then just get a reproduction copy of Hagane, because I do think that there is a threshold when it comes to how much I'm willing to spend on a single game. And to me, $1,800, $2,000 on a loose cart of Hagane, I still just can't do it. I'm not saying that it's not justifiable. If Hagane is like the one game that you have left to complete your Super Nintendo collection, maybe I can understand that person like going out on a limb and just picking it up to complete their collection. But for where I'm at with my collection, I am not gonna drop that much just on one loose cart. On top of that, most of the loose carts that I see out there, especially when it comes to Hagane, they're really not in the best of condition. And I think people are a little bit unrealistic with their expectations. Now, maybe one day I will have an authentic copy of Hagane. But for me, I picked this copy up because I actually want to play the game. Like, the game is very fun. Hagane is probably the most fun game to me on the Super Nintendo. Is it hard? Kind of. Like, the first maybe 2 levels aren't extremely hard, but by the time you get to that 3rd level, it gets hard. It gets really hard. But the thing about Hagane, which is a lot like Metal Warriors, is you have so many moves and weapons at your disposal that there's a very even balance between the difficulty and how you're able to combat and maneuver around the difficulty in the game. I feel like there's a really strong balance there. And I liken Hagane to Metal Warriors because in Metal Warriors, again, almost every button on the Super Nintendo controller activates some type of weapon, move, shield, something of that sort. And so I think these are just very well done games. So you don't have to break the bank. You don't have to go crazy. I think that there are very quality reproductions out there, especially when it comes to like Etsy. I've used Etsy to get certain reproduction games, and my whole thing. A lot of people don't feel like you can collect reproduction, or that collecting reproduction is good and stuff like that. And I definitely understand that, but for me, wanting to actually just play it, like if I really wanted to collect a complete in-box copy of Hagane or even just a loose cart, I could go out there and buy it. But for me, I actually want to play the game more than I want to collect it. And so that's why I went ahead and jumped out on a limb and grabbed this here. And I think it's a sick game. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know which game stood out to you the most, which is your favorite. Have you been able to take advantage of the buy two get one? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.